Don't say anything you don't want preserved for prosperity.
Oh,
Hello, Maya. Glad to see you. I'll pop the agenda for this morning, this afternoon on the screen here. I first want to talk about today and the date of today. I mentioned it in some of my stuff. Then if you want to ask some questions about the midterm, we can talk about that. If you want to ask some questions about term papers, we can talk about that. Then we'll look ahead at the weeks ahead. Then we'll dive into the content for today. But first is, and I want to do some fun on chat with you all. Let me turn that off so I can see the chat. So on chat, this is a way of letting lots of folks get involved who don't want to just speak up necessarily in class. Hello, Ms. Kim. Oh, she's not on mute. Hello, Ms. Kim.
Hello.
hey.
How are you doing?
Well, it's good to see you. We're just.
How are you feeling?
You're just starting.
Oh, yay.
I want to talk about today and the date of today, which is known as the Ides of March. Anybody know what if you think you know what the Ides of March is, write it down in the chat to everyone. I'll call on somebody to answer. IDES of March. You may not know, but just curious. No. Here comes Mr. Gary. Even though it says Andrew Chalk. So a couple of people have got an answer up here. Lucretia, you say it's what?
I'm sorry.
What do you say the Ides of March is?
I said the day Caesar was killed.
Yeah, right. And Walter, what do you know about the assassination of Julius Caesar?
From what I got, because when you said the Ides of March, it brought back memories of a black and white movie I had seen in high school of where it started out in the beginning of the movie. This gentleman kept saying, "Caesar, beware the Ides of March."
Right.
And the assassination, from what was said about Caesar, was a number of senators had grown tired of his dictatorship, of how he ran the country and how the people of the country were being treated at the time.
Okay, so what was that movie? Was that a play of something? Or?
No, it was a movie.
Okay, well, there's a famous drama play written by a very famous playwright about that. Anybody know what that was?
Didn't Shakespeare write?
That's it, right. Shakespeare wrote the play Julius Caesar, in which he just described the wise person threatening Caesar about look out for the Ides that day, the 15th of March. And then he goes to the Senate and all of his friends stab him. Yeah, so that was that, and it was because he was getting too powerful and they wanted an equality, which ended up in a civil war, which ended up in Caesar's son, Augustus Caesar, taking
Hello?
power as a total emperor dictator. So, yeah.
You got the wrong number. You're quite welcome. Bye.
So the Ides of March has been a very famous day of things to watch out for. Now I found a incidental piece of history to go with this day that I wanted to tell you about. In 1820, this connects back into our study indirectly. In 1820, the state of Maine was admitted to the Union. At that point, there were 22 states in the Union. 11 of them were free states, no slaves allowed, and 11 of them were slave states, North and South, clearly. Maine entered as a free state, and the southern states said, we don't want to have an unbalanced Senate, so you got to admit another state as a slave state. The state they admitted at that point was Missouri, which the northern folks didn't want to admit another slave state. It became a thing that was called the Missouri Compromise in order to figure all that out. And that now a little Kentucky history gets thrown in here. I don't know if you know what the name Henry Clay is in Kentucky history. Anybody know that one? He's depicted on the logo on the great seal of the state of Kentucky with two men shaking hands, one in buckskin and the other in a 1800s dress. The one in formal dress is Henry Clay, the great compromiser from Lexington. The other is probably Daniel Boone. But memorializes the compromise. The compromise was, sure, we can let another slave state in as long as we don't allow slavery in the rest of the West. And that all got thrown out later, but it was a way of getting none so that Maine could come into the state, into the federal government. Now, what are the implications of Maine becoming a state? What could happen? How could that affect Black people in the long run? So here's how this works. Maine becomes a state of a bunch of people who are really angry at being admitted into the Union with a compromise that allowed a free state in as the same way. They were strongly abolitionist, strongly against slavery, and they were angry. Well, shortly after that, a little project of the government called the Erie Canal was built. You heard of the Erie Canal? It's built from New York to the Great Lakes, which opened up basically boat traffic for people and goods to travel into the Midwest. That also allowed Mainers, people from Maine, to travel into the Midwest. And here we find some interesting historical names that you'll probably never heard of. You don't necessarily have to remember them, and it's just a great story, I think. One of these Mainers was a guy by the name of Elijah Parrish Lovejoy. I know that because this is a St. Louis thing, and I lived in St. Louis for a while. He's a Presbyterian minister who was also a newspaper man, and he moved to St. Louis and started a newspaper, an abolitionist newspaper called what was it called? The St. Louis Observer. Well, people in St. Louis didn't like having this newspaper publishing stuff about getting rid of slavery, and they kept attacking him, and they kept grabbing his printing press and throwing it in the river, the Mississippi River. So he moved across the river into Illinois, to Alton, Illinois, bought new printing presses, and kept printing this abolitionist news and opinion. Finally, a group of what we now would call terrorists, white guys from St. Louis, came across, grabbed his press, and were taking it down to the river to toss it in the river again, and he was fighting them, and so they killed him. So Elijah Parrish Lovejoy was a martyr to the abolitionist cause. His brother, also from Maine, was named Owen Lovejoy. Owen Lovejoy got involved in Illinois politics, became a member of the Illinois State Senate or House of Representatives, I guess. He became buddies of a Kentuckian from who became an Illinois representative named Lincoln. We've heard of that name before. They got together with a whole bunch of people to try to figure out what to do about this slave state, free state stuff. And they got a bunch of members of Congress together to figure out together what to do about all that. Those 30 folks became the nucleus of the birth of a new party in America in the 1850s called what? What party got begun there with Abe Lincoln and a bunch of other people?
Republican.
Yeah, that's where the Republican Party was birthed. Strongly abolitionist, staunchly saying we're for the ordinary American citizen, not the rich people getting rich off of slaves. It's changed some since then, but that was the beginning of the Republican Party, and Lincoln was elected as the first president from that party. All of that connected with the influx of people from Maine, as well as other places, who were staunchly abolitionist. That started with from the Ides of March. So America, beware the Ides of March. You let Maine into the Union, you're going to unleash all kind of stuff that can change the world. How history gets connected into things. It was just, I got all tickled about that party. I know, I've seen the graveside of Elijah Parrish Lovejoy in Alton, Illinois. It's a huge obelisk. He's a hero in the St. Louis area, and especially to Presbyterians, since he was a Presbyterian minister. So history. I just thought every now and again, I'll just toss you some fun historical facts. Questions or comments about the Ides of March and the admission of Maine to the Union? Totally boring. Okay, never mind.
Don't do that.
Because I mean, this is totally left, but so there is no connection between St. Patrick's Day and the Ides of March, because both of them people just drank happy.
There's no connection.
Wow.
No connection. The Ides of March is all connected to that Julius Caesar stuff.
Yeah.
And not, which is, that was Italy, by the way, not Ireland.
You know, because they start that and then it's St. Patrick's Day. That's crazy. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, Irish folks, they love drinking.
Yeah. And unlike other people, they love drinking green stuff, which is what I don't get.
That sounds like my 3-year-old nephew.
Yeah. So, other comments about this business? So, any questions about changing subject? Any questions about the midterm exam that you got yours? If you've had a chance to look at it, any questions about it? I was really pleased that you all did very well. I wasn't sure whether anybody was getting anything, and obviously you got the stuff that I thought you wanted to get and recognize that. And what the quiz is based is on recognition, not necessarily being pulled stuff out of the air by memory, but to recall it, to recognize it and say, oh, I recognize that that's the right answer. That's the whole thing about history, I think, at the moment. Any questions or comments about your term papers?
Yeah, go ahead and give us a refresher on it.
Say that again, please.
Yes, give us a refresher.
Okay.
Yes.
5-page paper. You were going to pick one of the major Black denominations or Black movements in America: Methodists, Baptists, Pentecostals, Prosperity Movement, or the Civil Rights Justice Movement. Do references with at least 3 other books are references beyond the textbook. The textbook has a chapter on each one of these in the Pen and Pen textbook, which is a good place to start, and then build from there.
You said 3 other references other than the textbook?
Correct. And you can do books. I'd like you to find some in the library. Mr. Holbrook was saying he had trouble finding anything in the library that was terribly helpful for him, but to check it out. I like to get you to look at the books in the library, but you can also look like stuff up on their history websites, and Encyclopedia Britannica are 2 really good ones. And maybe some of the denominations have their own history websites you could look at.
So you want a total of how many references though? 5?
4.
4. Okay.
At least 4. The Pen and Pen and 3 others.
Okay.
It's all in the syllabus, and I've also got it on the modules for the term paper. You can find it there. It's a quarter of your semester grade, and I encourage you to consult with Ms. Linda about writing and references and citations and so forth, so that it all works good. April 16th is the deadline for the book. I mean, for the paper. And I'd like for you, in addition, I'd like for you to do some research ahead so that on the weeks we're studying those topics, you can report what you're finding. And you do a little bit of teaching in the class in that topic.
Right. And with those,
So what I've got is, so far I've got Walter and Gary are studying Methodism. I can be corrected on this, but then Lucretia, Jamal, and Trent were going to study the Baptists. Malik, you talked about Pentecostals. Nobody picked Prosperity, although Jamal thought he might. And Aya and Jada both said they would do the justice movements, civil rights and justice movements. Any
Dr.
corrections?
I picked the Prosperity.
You did? Okay, cool.
You don't have me?
I had no, somehow I didn't, but I do now.
Okay.
Good. So we're going to talk about Methodism next week. So the 2 of you need to kind of think about how and when you can do some reporting. You might even connect with each other, Gary and Walter, and see what you can add so that you can tell us some things you've learned. It'll be useful.
How long should these presentations be?
10 minutes.
So 10 minutes on Pentecostalism.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm all by myself. Good.
At this point, yeah.
That's fine with me. That's good. Good.
April, it's the week of April 5th is when that.
Wait, what'd you say?
The week of April 5th.
and I'm sorry.
What do you, Prosperity as the date for presentation?
I'll show you here on the screen.
Okay.
Here's the screen with the dates. Next
Okay.
week, Methodism, March 29th, the Baptists, April 5th, week of the 5th, Pentecostals, Prosperity. I got to add you on here. Week of April the 12th, and then the 19th, Liberation Theology and the Justice Movements.
Okay, and with these presentations, is there something in particular that you are looking for us to present about each one of these topics?
I want you to pick stuff that you think is interesting, or what you've learned that you're excited to know something about that you want to share with the class. That's what a
Okay.
good teacher does.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if it was something in particular that you wanted us to.
No, I want you to, I'm looking forward you to contribute and add to what I might teach. And I'll work
Okay.
around it. You know, theoretically, supposedly I know more than you do, but you're going to find
What?
stuff that you're going to find out stuff that I don't.
What?
There you go.
You
Okay.
just
Okay,
argue.
Doc.
You act like you don't believe me.
We believe you, Doc. We believe you.
By the way, the final exam is going to be May the 5th. You can start worrying about that. But this is all in the money. Any questions about any of that stuff?
Do you
I was just gonna say I'm gonna start typing mine up this weekend and send it in to you so you can tell me what you think and send it back
Happy to do that. Yeah.
with any corrections you may see needed on it.
I guarantee you I will have some corrections. Yeah, that's good. And let Ms. Ellison see it, Ms. Linda see it ahead of time too, if you can.
Okay. Done.
Other questions about the term papers and the reports?
So
We don't have to do one, right?
Beg your pardon?
I'm joking, Doc. I'm joking. I would say we don't have to do one.
yeah.
Yeah, you do. Well, you know, you can, it's 25% of your grade if you choose not to do a term paper.
I need that.
Well, I'm going to do it. You already know.
I do.
Okay.
Let's have a little fun with the class today.
That's good. I'm for that. Was there another, Malik, were you asking a question?
No, I'm good. I think I answered my own question. I'm good. Thanks.
Good. All right. Well, you can always let me know.
Yes, sir.
Miss Maya had a question for you.
Yeah?
She put it in the chat box, I think.
Oh. Yes, you can do a PowerPoint in the class. That'd be great.
Ooh.
Miss Kim said that.
We can
Oh,
do
Miss
it.
Kim said that. All right. Oh, here's Maya. And add Stephen to the group. Oh, sure. Super. Thank you. Great. Super duper. That's why we talk about these things in class.
Yes.
Very good. All right. Now I want to do some more fun with the chat thing. I want you to grab your copy of Pen and Pin if you got that, or if you're reading it online or whatever. And I want you to do some exploring together of this book. And we'll do it rather than asking for, you know, I want to give everybody a shot.
Oh, shoot.
Everybody got your book?
Yes, sir.
It's a beautiful red book.
You know I got my.
Doc, also, remember when we had to watch that special on PBS?
Yes.
Anthony was one of the people that was asked questions in that documentary.
Yes, it was.
Look at
It was
that.
pretty neat. Right.
A miracle.
All right. So the first piece is if you look on the back cover, and there's brief biographical information about the authors. Who are the authors, and what do you think? And the question is, what do you think their agenda is for writing a history of Black churches?
Dr. Sawyer.
Repeat that.
I can repeat that. Who are the authors from the back of the cover? Who are the authors, and what do you think from reading their brief bio? What do you think their agenda is for writing a history of Black churches? Why would they be writing that church, from what you can tell?
in my first opinion, it would be that they wrote it for the interest in getting us to be aware of where the black churches came from in the slavery time after Emancipation Proclamation in 1865.
Okay. Now, what I want you to do is put this in chat so everybody gets a chance to
Oh,
hear.
okay, my bad.
I appreciate your zeal for answering the question, though.
I'm sorry, though. That's what I get for reading.
Yeah. Dr. Sawyer, can you repeat that question one more time?
I don't know if I can or not. This will cost you another dime.
Yeah. I'll just cash app it to you if you have
Trying to
cash.
get in the
Yeah,
chat.
great. So look at the blurb on the back of the cover about the authors. And what do you discover there that suggests what their agenda is for writing about
My bad.
Black church history? What point of view do they come at from this?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sawyer. No, I got
That's
it.
it, no more.
How I
No
get
more.
into the chat? How do I get into the chat?
You at the bottom of the screen, you should see a little message thing that says chat. You
Yeah.
punch that, and then you can type in
Okay.
to everyone.
Well, it's not showing up for me at the moment. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I see it now.
Yeah, sometimes it's tricky.
So we just answered the same question I just answered.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please. This is good practice for using the chat. And that's a way of getting everybody involved. Here's somebody typing. This is good. Okay, I need some answers up here.
I'm coming.
I've already got mine up.
I see yours, Walter. Thank you.
Oh,
And of course, that's been one of the things I've told you all along. Watch out for all historians have an agenda. What is their agenda? Just guess. You don't have to know it for sure. Just guess.
And what I read about the authors.
To inform us of it.
There are also clues from the reading we had from this week, but it's you know, wherever.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So is this?
Did you get mine, Doc?
Not yet.
Huh?
No.
I'm trying to send it, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Basically, you type it and just hit enter, I think. Is that not right?
Yes, sir.
Doing something. See.
Okay. Still got nothing. After Walter.
I'm just guessing. I'm sending my Dr. Sawyer. That's all I could think of.
Well, okay, just send me what you think of. That's good.
Oh, I just sent it. Oh yeah, and Dr. Sawyer. Let me be quiet. I'm gonna be quiet after this. Let me find it. So I have the book, but you said inside there was something inside the was it like a little biography about the authors or?
It's
Oh,
on the
maybe on the back could be on there. You don't have the back cover of it. Okay.
Well, I guess.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So,
My copy has a back cover on it and there's the picture of the. So no wonder you're having trouble with it. Sorry about that.
at least I took a shot at it. So I guess.
That's all right. Okay. So help me out. Lucretia, what's going on? You're not getting it?
He's muted.
Yeah, she's not telling me anything either. Okay, there's Gary's. Okay, this is clearly isn't working. Sorry, folks. Let me go to the next question while you're thinking about that. The next question is, if you go on page 2, I hope your pages are the same as mine.
Oh my gosh.
If they're not, you'll be in trouble.
Oh gosh, help me.
The third paragraph of page 2, the first paragraph says the commonly held attitude. The second paragraph is an intent of the quote from the Genesis. The third paragraph starts with Europeans understood. And in that paragraph, are you
I got
finding,
it. Yes, sir. I'm on the same page as you. Yes, sir.
in the middle of that paragraph, it talks about how colonial Americans thought about evangelizing or introducing African slaves to Christianity. That attitude is very different from the attitude taken by Pope Nicholas V in 1442, where he encouraged the Portuguese to go down and capture those Africans and make them slaves. What's the difference? Read that section and see what you pick up as a difference between what we already learned about another piece of history.
You want us to put it in the chat?
Well, let's try it and see what happens.
Okay.
And what's your question to that again? I'm sorry.
How is what's described here as the attitude of the colonists toward Christianizing or introducing the slaves to Christianity? How is that different than the reason proposed by Pope Nicholas V back in the 1400s when he said, go down to Portugal, go down and take those people to be slaves? Because there was a very Christianizing impulse that the Pope suggested. That's very different from what these white colonists are saying that should happen.
Mm.
This is making you think about history. It may be too hard. I don't know. You know. All right. Anybody getting anything? Or am I striking? I may not be asking decent questions. It could be me.
Yeah. I'm hoping that's the answer you was looking for.
It's all right. Let's try it.
That's deep.
I've sent it.
And how's that? Okay, and Walter, how's that different from what the Pope talked about? You got the part about the colonialists, correct?
Okay.
See, it's all tied together. It's all tied together.
Stumped. I'm stuck.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's just talk about it. Forget the chat. Let's talk about this. So what did the Pope say to Prince Henry of Portugal about taking slaves from Africa and bringing them back to Portugal? Why did he think that was a good idea? Why did the Pope get involved in it in the first place? Remember old Pope Nicholas V and Prince Henry the Navigator?
Yes, sir.
Anybody want to say something?
Didn't he promise if he went and did bring the slaves back, that it would also grow the Catholic population, because the workforce would be there, plus they would all have a knowledge of the Catholic faith. So the Pope did grant that, but the Pope was also kind of the government anyway, even though you did have a king, it still had to be a
Pope was very important, but the Pope was saying, sure, they can become Christians, and partly because they can be Catholics, but the advantage of taking the slaves is they're terrible pagans now, and they don't know, they're all going to hell. But if they become slaves and you introduce them to Jesus, then they can go to heaven. It's a good thing for them, right? That's what the Pope said. What do the colonials saying about these African people?
For the difference, I'm supposed to write this in the chat, right?
No, look, we're just talking about it.
Well, and what I understood about it, Doc. Hang on, I'm off track. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm kind of off track on screen. But anyway, what I got out of it was, in short, that even though when we go back to Portugal and my man Henry, he said we was dumb, we wasn't able to comprehend anything.
Right.
But as we read on down through this paragraph, the colonials was thinking that if the Africans would think themselves equal, if they could get to know the knowledge and learn some things out of the Bible, and would it be able to be a defiance to their obedience? They wouldn't be obedient to their slave owners anymore.
Right. And they're saying two things out of both sides of their mouths. One is they're too stupid. They're black people. They're stupid and just look at them. They're just not real human beings. So they would never understand Christianity. And besides, as you say, Gary, they might think they're equal and then they would rebel. Two reasons why not to evangelize or tell your slaves about Christianity.
But wasn't it also the whitewashing? You know, God doesn't look like you, so you're going to need help. He looks like me, and so, you know, I can lend you a little bit. So okay.
Yeah, that's part of it. They looked that they're not like us, so they can't understand Jesus like we do. Right.
Because at that time they took the photos and altered them in that, like the beginning, and
way back. That's the whitewashing way back. That's right. Okay. Everything white was good. Anything not white is bad. Right.
But didn't they, when they had their services, the slaves had their services, they also had someone to sit in their services to make sure certain messages, only so much was said in the messages.
Right.
You know.
Right. So we're talking about a time delay here. The pins are taking, I'm saying page 2, there was a period where many slave owners and other people in power didn't think it was a good idea to have ministers talk to the slaves about Christianity because of what we just said. Later on, they started allowing that to happen. But they always had, it was a minister that the white slave owner would allow on the plantation, if it was a plantation, and they would have at least somebody from the ownership or the slave masters sitting in to be sure the preacher didn't tell them anything that might get them riled up. That's right.
Don't do that.
Well, Dr. So, plus adding on to what Lucretia was saying, also from what I watched from the documentary, The Church, there were certain chapters, verses, and parts of the Bible that were not allowed to be permitted to talk because they spoke of freedom.
Right.
And, they also spoke, of liberation, and they didn't, like you said, they didn't want the slaves to have this idea of, okay, we need to rebel for our freedom.
Right. Yeah.
Because they were talking about several passages in Genesis and in Psalms and other parts of the Bible that slave owners did not want taught at all.
Yep, exactly. So so that gets into, and what Lucretia's talking about later, there were groups who began to say, no, it's our responsibility to share the gospel with these people. They're not quite human, but they deserve to know. Now, on page 3 and 4, they talk about groups in the north that began sharing their faith with the blacks among them. What were they?
Are we referring to Benjamin Lay and John Woolman?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What group were they with?
They were Quakers.
Yeah.
And they felt that the Negro slaves were able to be taught religion because they felt that they could understand it and could comprehend everything in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But there were others like John Eliot and I think Cotton Mather's, if I'm correct,
Mm-hmm.
felt that even though the Negro could be taught, that they still should remain in slavery.
Right. It's a very convenient way of thinking.
Mm.
Yeah. And what group was Cotton Mather and those people with?
The Society of Negroes.
No. Cotton Mather was a nice white man.
Mather
Oh.
developed the society. He was a white.
Oh, he did develop the Society of Negroes.
Negroes.
That's true. But he was himself
Puritan.
a Puritan, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Quakers and the Puritans, remember from our study of the Reformation, those two groups were breakaways from the Church of England, and they were more likely to believe in it's okay to be free. It's okay to be thinking for yourself, and so they would begin to think it's okay to share this stuff with their black neighbors. That was an interesting piece.
Mhm.
So now in the South, meanwhile, what church groups were prominent in this early period of time of introducing Christianity to the black folks among them?
Was it the Anglican Church?
Well, that's then quite pronounced it right.
Was it Methodist and Baptist?
It was Baptists, and it was first the Anglicans, which is what you're trying to get at, Gary.
Yes. Anglican.
Which is what's another name for that we call that in America now?
Was it the Methodist Church?
No.
Oh, I forgot.
Anglicans are the Episcopalians.
Perry, yeah. Your church. My bad.
No, I'm Presbyterian. I'm another white folks Presbyterian church. Yeah. So the Anglicans and the Baptists were the first people to start getting at maybe we should be thinking about that. And the Baptists were also separatists. The Anglicans were pretty heavily into Catholicism. But there's a connection then between the Anglicans and the Methodists. What's that connection from the Reformation?
What was the question again?
What's the connection between the Episcopalians, the Anglicans, and the Methodists? You asked about the Methodists.
Mm-hmm.
In history, there is a historical connection between those two denominations.
Wesleyan John Wesley had something to do with that, didn't he?
Yeah.
From the England Church. Then formed the Methodists, broke away from them and the church, the Anglican Church, and moved to the Methodist Church, formed the Methodist Church, I think it was.
So he was an Anglican, Episcopalian, and the names of the Methodist denominations in America had the word Episcopal in them. What's now the United Methodist Church was originally the Methodist Episcopal Church in the USA.
Mm.
And then the black churches that formed their own groups that were Methodists, what are those three names? You got them yet? Anybody?
The AME,
Yeah,
the AME Zion,
yeah,
and the CME.
that's right.
And then you also still got the EME Church, the Methodist Episcopal too.
Yeah, that's right. The white folks church, which is splitting off to another whole nother thing. That's another business. That's right. So those two groups began thinking about it's okay to share Christianity, and this is before the into the 1700s. Now on pages 6 and following, 6, 7, 8, and 9. What were the Great Awakenings?
The Great Awakening.
Oh,
I'm at the second one, but the Great Awakening. The first Great Awakening was in the beginning of the 1730s and hitting its stride in the 1740s.
Yeah.
And it sparked the interest of Europeans who acknowledged the urgency of religion reform, in part a response to the Calvinist ethos that touched many colonies.
Right. So the Reformation plays in here clearly.
Mhm.
You got your freedom thinking people and you got your Calvinists who were, okay. Yeah. So what happened in the Great Awakenings? Why are we studying that now?
It was a breakthrough expressed in strong emotions. The evangelists such as George Whitefield offered a religious experience that differed greatly from the rather standard tradition of Puritans and Anglicans.
Right. Okay. Somebody else besides Gary want to say what you know? What else you know about the Great Awakenings? Kind of look
I
at
think
it.
I know my grandfather and I were talking about this one day. A movement of the Holy Spirit when he would
Yeah.
come through and like a rushing mighty wind. And he said that they were all. It's like going back to Acts 2 when they were all filled in one accord on the day of Pentecost, and how they all were filled in one place now, spoken tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. Just how man, yeah, that's it. And I also thought about like the Azusa Street revival. How
Yeah.
he
Now that's a whole different period of time though.
oh, I'm going too far. Whoops, I'm going too far.
The Azusa Street, beginning of the Pentecostals.
Okay,
Similar.
well, I'm going too far. I'm
It's a
going too far.
different century.
Okay,
So
according to what,
yeah, go ahead, Walter.
I'm sorry, according to what they were writing, they said the Baptists and the Methodist churches begin to dominate this era with the revival, basically the fire and brimstone sermons, known as the Christian fold.
Yeah. So these are like revivals. Where did they have them? Where did they hold them?
Camp meetings.
Yeah, they were outdoor at camp meetings, big gatherings of people. And instead of a formal church service with all the formalities with it, there was singing and there was dancing and there was preaching and an opportunity to come forward and give your life to Jesus Christ. We're still calling those kind of things revivals.
Revivals, yeah.
So why is that connected with Black history? What do you read there that puts those things in connection with Black church history?
Because a lot of the revivals are still going on. We still having them.
Well, yeah, but what
That,
happened at that point?
uh,
There was a
that
reason.
we began to some of those churches like the Methodist Church, especially the AME, started to have classes and started to teach the slaves how to read and write as well in the
Yes,
educational departments. And
that also came along. But in the Great Awakening revivals, the first and the second,
Would it happen to be where it says here that the Baptist and Methodist churches, this is on page 7 where I'm reading, I think it's the third paragraph, that the Baptist and Methodist evangelists had more freedom to preach than the Puritan and the Anglican ministers on how services were conducted.
hmm,
They were free to address popular issues, attitudes of the South, and translate it into a sense of spiritual individuality. Would that be one of the things you're looking for?
yeah. But then the other thing I'm looking for is, were these segregated events on whites only?
No.
no,
No,
Here's the deal. All of a sudden, whereas the church was just saying, you black folks, you can sit in the balcony, in these camp meetings, they're wide open. Everybody could come. Everybody could sing. Everybody could listen. Everybody could come forward and be saved. It did not discriminate against their black folks at that point.
Dr. Sawyer, isn't this also the first time that the message of suffrage was given with the knowledge that no evil act will not go undone, it will not go unpunished, and it did address pain and the suffering and give a spiritual encouragement rather than a you're never going to be it because you're not white.
Yeah.
It was like almost the acknowledgement of the plight of the slave.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. And one of the things that Gary mentioned was the difference between the revival stuff and the Calvinist notions about what should happen in religious growth and instruction. Anybody catch that difference and why the Great Awakening was different?
I, I'm looking at something here, and mm, it's the awakening theological echoes appeal to the Africans because of their belief in the priesthood mentality, that because preaching the gospel was not limited to those who had formal training only,
Yeah, that could so
that anybody could preach.
yeah, yeah, that's a piece of it. But that here's there are two major things. Let me just kind of throw this in. We're running out of time. Two major things about the awakenings. One is they were emotional, which appealed to the black folks because that was their milieu in African religions. It was the emotions and the connections and the singing and the dancing and the connecting with who they really were fully as human beings. And the second piece was people have a right and have the ability to choose whether they want to be a Christian or not. Right?
Okay.
Required, and this fits very nicely with most Baptists and Methodists, is you are free to choose whether or not to be, and you must continually free choose. You have to remember that you're supposed to be Christian. The Calvinist, Presbyterian Calvinist stuff was all about you're predestined, God's in charge, you're not in charge. You don't have a choice whether you're going to go to heaven or not. God tells you whether you are or not. All of a sudden, this revival stuff is saying, you get to make a choice. You get to be free to say, yes, I want to be a Christian, or no, I don't. And that really appealed to black folks too. It still does. That most Presbyterians don't believe that stuff anymore, but that was a big difference at that point. Methodists are also in that free choice business. God wants you to be close to God, but you have to say yes. You get to say yes or no. That's the freedom of being a Christian. So that whole business of emotionality and the importance of choosing, which is why the revivals always say now the moment to decide, the moment to commit is always there. And all of that pulled more and more people, as it says, the Methodists and the Baptist churches starting growing like crazy, with black folks saying, okay, yeah, we're good. We want to be Christians too. That fits with us in lots of ways. It fit because of the sense of freedom, the liberation, talking about the Bible passages where God actually was in favor of getting rid of people getting free from their slavery. Well, that's crazy stuff. All of that began to bring black folks into the churches, which then leads us into the formation of the various denominations from all that, and we'll get into that some more on Wednesday. But so the piece I wanted you to get a sense of how the differing ideas about whether or not black folks could be introduced to Christianity, we talked last time about their meeting secretly in their brush arbors and hush arbors to celebrate their own sense of religion, which then became more and more Christian as many more and more of them were introduced to Christianity. And then that eventually turned into denominations that we now know as the black churches. That's the movement of history through this whole business that I wanted you to get a sense of. Questions or comments about that? Now on Wednesday.
Don't you mean Thursday?
No, I don't. Why? Why Thursday?
I'm sorry, I'm taking another class. I'm sorry. Go.
I was like, wait a minute, what's
Wait a minute, what happened here?
I'm thinking today's Tuesday. I'm sorry.
Let him use you, Walter. Let him use you.
Well, yes, spring break's over, Walter. You got to get back with the program now. Yeah, this is a Monday, Wednesday class.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have a medical procedure that I'm doing at 1 o'clock on Wednesday, and that's when I could get it set, so I'm doing it. So we won't have a class in person. I will record a lecture presentation for the rest of this section of the Christianization of black folks in the early period of history before we get into the black denominations. And so I'll put that up probably Tuesday night, so you can start looking at that anytime you want to. And then you will have the next weekly reading report that will be due on Friday, as per usual, back from spring break. And that will be on the topic of this week, which is the preface and the introduction to Pin and Pin that we were just going over. Got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, God's being healing for your procedure.
Keep me in our prayers.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Just a diagnostic thing, nothing big deal, but it's one of those things that's no fun, but I got to do it. You know how it is. So, and then I will see you next Monday when we'll start talking about the Methodists. I will say that I was trying to learn a new way of doing class using the chat to try to liven it up. Clearly, I don't know how to do that yet, so I beg your pardon.
I think we don't know how to do it. I think you knew, we didn't.
Well,
I ain't going there with you.
It was pretty good. We tried.
It was a try. The faculty had a seminar with Ja'Cory Arthur last 2 weeks ago. You know, have you met him?
He's amazing.
He's as a music teacher here at Simmons. He's also on city council. This just elected city council, and he is the most dynamic character. I love him. He does amazing things all around the city. He's also a rap artist and a classical musician as well. Partners with Teddy Abrams in the orchestra. Anyway, he taught us how to do that. Obviously, I need the second class in that thing to get going on this business. Anyway, thanks for letting me use you as guinea pigs for my experiment. And
Your
So Dr.
Louisville
Zafar, right?
Seminary, the Louisville
What?
Seminary extra credit was amazing. There is a whole lecture series that that Methodist, the portion that they were talking, and there's other lectures. So
Yeah.
if anybody can get a chance to register, I was like, oh my goodness. It was good.
I'll send you all the links to that. I'll give extra credit if you want to do that, and just send me a screenshot of that show of whatever you're doing, and I haven't figured out how many points, but it's good stuff, as well as that PBS event that I think Walter talked about going to seeing on the history of the Black churches with
It's on YouTube now.
what?
It's on YouTube.
Yeah. And who was the host of that series? I blanked on his name.
Mr. Gates.
Yeah.
Gates, yeah.
Him
Louis
and-
Gates
Yeah.
Jr. something like that.
It
Yeah,
was very
that was really good stuff. Included Howard Thurman, Anthony Pinn was in there. A lot of really good stuff.
Wow. Gotta watch.
So there's all kinds of ways to learn about church history, and a whole lot better than watching this old white man struggle with it. But we're
Don't
working.
you start yet. We ain't gonna have a discussion.
Okay. I will see you on Monday. I look forward to reading your papers.
All right.
Everybody stay safe, and I'll
Please.
try to get everybody some new pictures of my grandson today.
Yeah.
Oh.